is calling to Israel out of the darkness unseen. Holy Mother whispers to me, stand for the Torah is near, and I sing. Come out of Babylon, nothing is as it seems. Come out of Babylon, lukewarm is in between, and you see.
So normally we do these videos actually the day before Shabbat, but this is clearly quite a few days after Shabbat. We had a Savuot after the last Shabbat, and we were too busy the day before Shabbat to do it that week, so we couldn't do it. And then, like I said, we had Shavuot the next day after Shabbat, so we just didn't do it. And then we'd finished making the album, and I was using that space to make my album, and I was also doing the video, stuff, the recording and stuff for the podcast in there. But we just decided it was best to move from there where we were at, and the Most High is going to open up something for us here in the future, better for doing that. Right now we're just going to be doing this like outside. It's really nice, it's summer, and this is really beautiful. We're here in Arkansas, and this amphitheater here, I really don't know what the history is too much. I should probably research that. But anyway, so we're here to honor Yahushua and the Ruach HaKodesh. And so we don't have a teaching today. So today we're going to do a testimony, because it's like we've talked about a few things in our two videos that we've done, and we needed to, I think that just to get to know us and the works that the Most High has done through us, how He's blessed us and pulled us out of utter darkness. For me personally, I was utter darkness. Angeline wasn't there, thank goodness. But yeah, so we were just gonna speak on that, speak truth to our testimony about that. Got anything else to say?
No. We want to start with.
Well, we'll start. I'll do a further. Angeline keeps prompting me. I need to write a book about this stuff, and I really should write a book about it. We've recently come into Nathan Reynolds' ministry through watching YouTube, and it's sparking a lot of things in me, things that I went through personally. I was under attack. Now it appears I was part of something much larger than that. Actually, I'd like to be able to do something with Nathan Reynolds, an interview, or just talk, about this stuff. But anyway, so it's facilitated in me a need to go, but I can't go all the way back through all that, because that's like a book. So to talk on those things, we'll just talk about what called us to this ministry, this Nomadic Ministries, that the Most High has called us to. We'll talk about that, and Angeline you can go ahead and start on when that prompted us. We were living in Oregon at the time.
Yeah, we were. Actually, should we start this in prayer?
Oh, yes.
For all our brothers and
Sorry,
sisters
we prayed.
out there listening.
Yeah, we prayed before we did this, but then
we didn't pray with you, so
we didn't pray
we'll
with
read that right now.
Yeah, go ahead, love.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Yahuwah, Abba. Thank you so much for the ability that we have to be able to do this, to produce these videos, to get this out there to people who would normally not even be able to reach. We pray for all our brothers and sisters out there, the true believers, those are the truth seekers, who are yearning and desiring to know you better and to know your truth and learning it, and are not only wholeheartedly seeking after you, but coming in contact with other brothers and sisters all over the place like we have. It's such a blessing, and I pray for all of them, Adonai, that they would continue to keep learning, that you would give them your wisdom through your Ruach HaKodesh, just deep understanding into what is truth, the truest truths, not what we've been led to believe, but the truest truths. And I pray for all, wherever they're at in their life, wherever they're at in their ministry, wherever they're at in their learning and their relationship with you. Just pray that it's be strengthened, and that you just continue to bless them for their good and your glory. Ultimately, it's your glory that we want to see. We're not any of this is about us. This journey here, even for Scott and I, is not about us. Their journeys are not about us. They're about you. And they're about the relationship we get to have with you and Yahushua and the Ruach HaKodesh. And we're just so grateful that we get to be a part of it. And we just lift this time up to you, this testimony to you. May it go out to those who need to hear it. In Yahushua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay. All right. Well, I think we should start with how we met.
Oh.
And then we'll go from there.
Okay.
We'll go from there. So,
Okay.
The Most High has given me many songs, psalms, and he also put it upon my heart that I was supposed to record these. I was supposed to record this music, and I had a fellow that used to play percussion with me and stuff. And we kind of had this ministry. We'd go out into the community, and I would take my children. I had 2 children. I have 2 children, and they go out in the community with me and this fellow that would play percussion, and we would hand out gospel tracts, and we'd sing these songs of praise, all pointing to Yahushua and honoring Yahuwah, and filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. And so we would do that, and then the drummer, bless his heart, I love him. I won't use his name or anything like that, but he was having substance abuse issues, and I prayed with him. I even tried to bring him into my home and stuff, and he just couldn't get out of that. He wasn't willing for deliverance at the time. He didn't want that. He wanted to be in that. So I told him that we couldn't play anymore until he got clean. And so anyway, I couldn't find it. I needed a percussionist to play with, and I couldn't find one. And then a deacon at my church, the church I was going to, was an Orthodox Presbyterian church. I'm just going to keep it here because getting to that point is a whole nother story. But anyway, the deacon at the church, encouraged me to find a drummer at this jam session. It was at this church called Lifelink, and it was, what was it, like twice a month?
Yeah, the first and third Wednesdays of the month.
First and third Wednesdays of the month, yes. And I could find a drummer there that would be able to record, because I just got all this, recording stuff, and I was like, I was ready, but I wasn't, because I didn't have, peeps to play with me. Nobody was serious, about being in a ministry, because it is a ministry. It's not, it's not just you just go out, you get your music, played on K-Love and all this stuff. That's not what it's about. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's about at all. We're here to help set the captives free, and there's so many, and so that's what it's about. So I went there hoping to find a drummer, but I didn't find a drummer. Well, I did find a drummer later. She keeps the rhythm to my heart. This is my drummer girl. She keeps the rhythm to my heart. But Angeline was there at that jam night, and I'd play songs, the Most High gave me, and then I saw her there. At that point, I had given up. I thought that I was going to be bachelor to the rapture, is what I would say. A bachelor to the rapture, and I'd given up, because I could not find anyone in the Christian community. And at that time, I was deep in mainstream Christianity, but I couldn't find any true believers to me. People that were serious, that put God first with their thoughts, their words, and their actions. Nobody was doing that anywhere. I tried Christian dating sites, you name it, nothing. So I was just like, okay, there's nobody out here for me, so I'll just be single, the remainder of my stay here on this plane of the earth. And anyway, that led me to meeting Angeline, and she was there. Now, I saw her first, and I was like, wow, here's this beautiful woman. Is she real, though? And is she a real Christian? Or is she one of those other people I didn't know? But, I was drawn to her. And I just started praying heavy about it. I was like scared to death to talk to her. Because, I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be real. And more importantly, I wanted it to be blessed by the Most High. I wanted her to be real, and for her to be a real child of God. So I prayed. I had a vision. About bears and her family. I didn't even know she had a family, but in the dream we had families and we were like together. And I was rescuing them from this bear that I ended up, rubbing its belly while everybody else got away. That was the dream. That was the dream. That was the dream. So I was like, what is this? What is this? So I talked to my pastor at the time, who was supposed to be my best friend, and he said, well, she's got to be a real, she's got to meet these criteria. If she doesn't meet the criteria, don't waste your time. Well, she has to have an intricate knowledge of the New World Order. all these things, these understandings that this discernment that the Most High has brought me to, that a lot of people in the church weren't at. I was pretty much considered a, kind of loony guy at the church, I guess, because of the truth. People just can't hear the truth. I didn't celebrate Christmas. I didn't celebrate any of the pagan holidays and stuff like that. I got called out on that a long time ago when I was a youth pastor. That's another story. But anyway, so I was like, okay, so the next time, I'm like, okay, the next time that I see her, I'm gonna do this, but I'm praying before you, and I'm saying, look, if, show me a sign with her that she is the one that you created for me to be with from the foundations of the earth. And I believe this. And so he did. So the next time I went, and this is. Okay, so this other thing happened. I gotta backtrack a little bit, because there's this one thing that happened before I got there, and that was one of the guys I was getting together with. He was a drummer there, and he would come and I jammed with him a couple times, and he said, why don't you have a wife? What's going on? You should have a girlfriend or something like that, right? And I was like, well, I don't believe in girlfriends or anything like that. I believe in courting. It's contemporary Christian dating is not what we've been called to do or anything like that. So I believed in courting, and he was just like, what? What is that? But so anyway, he tells me, because I tell him what happened. Hey, I've given up. I gave up. I told him, I've tried to, talk with some of these ladies in the church, different churches online that profess to be Christians, but they are not. So I'm like, I've just given up. I'm going to be a bachelor to the rapture. And he's like, well, I know a really good, real Christian woman. and she goes to this church here. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, she's here tonight. And I'm like, oh, please, is she, I'm thinking, is she her? Because I saw her, and I felt something about her. And of course, she was so beautiful and pretty, so I was just like, but that's, that shouldn't be your foundation for finding a Proverbs 31 gal, but it just so happened that she was, and I'm blessed because of it. But anyway, so he says, well, I know, I'll introduce you to her. All right, so we're out, and we were in the kitchen at the time, so we come in, and I'm following him down the aisle to the pews and where she's at. And all of a sudden he turns in where she's at. I'm thinking he's going to lead me to her and introduce me to her. Right? Wrong answer. Wrong answer. What he does is he stops immediately as I'm going, and I have to go by because there's no other place to sit but next to her. And I'm horrified because I'm like, what do I say? What do I say to her? Do I talk? What do I say? I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak to her.
Yeah, you didn't. It was awkward.
I couldn't, and I was just like, afterwards, I'm like telling this guy, hey, what are you doing, man? I thought you were going to introduce me. He's like, I did. He's like, I did. She's right there, do what you got to do. And I'm just like, I haven't talked to a woman in years, especially concerning this, because if it is what I think it is, it's very serious, and I don't want to mess that up. I need preparation. I need prayer. I need to do some serious praying about this. This isn't something I just jump into. So yeah. So then now this is the next after I meet her like that, which we don't meet. But I sat next to her. So I'm sitting next to her. After that, which I can't help but notice how beautiful she is, and it makes me even more uncomfortable. so then I get, after that, that's when I talk with my pastor and all that stuff. And I'm praying intently, and then I had this vision about the bear and, rubbing its belly and saving everybody else. And then, so the next time we go, I see her, and of course I'm like, hi, my name's Scott, and I introduced myself to her. It was like, my name's Scott. Yeah. And she's like, my name's Angeline. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I know her, and I know who I can specifically pray for. And she gets called up to sing with the lady who's facilitating this Christian jam, right? And so the lady, has her come up there, but they don't have a drummer that day. Well, I play a little bit of percussion, so I was like, I'll go up there, I'll play the cajon, So she makes me sit right next to Angeline, and she puts Angeline right next to me. Right next to me, so I can't help but be right next to her. I'm like, okay, well, I just introduced myself, but then I'm thinking she's the one. Lord, give me a sign. Give me a sign. She's got rhythm. She's playing that tambourine, and I'm just like, woo! She's got rhythm. That's exciting. That's really exciting to me. She's got rhythm, and she's singing. She's got a beautiful voice and stuff like that. I was just like, oh, great, And then after we're done. Because as I'm playing, the cajon, I'm slapping on the cajon stuff. I'm praying to the Most High. I'm saying, please show me a sign that she's the one that you created for me. We created us together to do this mission together. And so she asked me, to come and eat with her and her friend in the kitchen, because they would do a fellowship meal midway through the jam. And so I was like, oh, is that the sign? I don't know. And then, so we get in there, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to test her. I'm going to go for, I want to see if she's a real one. So, everything, my focus is Yahuwah, the Most High, everything. So that's all I'm about. I want her to know that's all I'm about. She's okay with that. And if, she wants that, so I'm putting that out there. This is who I am in Christ, and she's right there with me. And then I hear her making comments about things that are New World Order, and I'm like, whoa, she has, but it's intimate understanding, of that, not someone who's just, heard the word, but someone who understands the architecture. And so I was just like, is she the one? And I'm talking to Melissa the whole time, but I'm just like, wow. And I didn't want to stop talking to her. But then it was like, we had to go back out there. But I didn't want to. I wanted to just hang with her. And then it was like that the rest of the night. I didn't want her to leave. But then I'm walking her to her car, and I'm talking to Melissa in my head, give me another sign. Give me another sign. And I didn't want to stop talking with her, and then I was too afraid to ask her for a number. Well, that's a whole nother thing. So I didn't even ask her for a number. And I didn't know. It had been 7 years since I was divorced. So I had no idea how to do this thing. And I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't. So as I get in my truck and it starts to rain. And she gets in her vehicle, her Highlander, and starts driving, off. Then she stops, pushes on brakes, and I said, "Oh, is this the sign? Is this the sign?" She gets out of her vehicle, right? And I'm right behind her. I got my lights on, everything. And she gets out and she grabs the Jam Night sign and starts walking that back inside. I don't even pick up on that until our first year anniversary. That was a literal sign. She's carrying a literal sign. You want a sign? Here you go. She's carrying a literal sign. Do you see? Can you see it? You see it? I didn't even see that until after we'd been married a year. And then we had some folks over for a fellowship meal. And so, and I was like, I realized that, wait, she was carrying a literal sign. What on earth? How could I not see that? I was just so afraid. So then I text the lady who's in charge of the jam thing. I said, "Hey, is Angeline? I'm Angeline tonight. Is she single and all this stuff?" Because I was afraid to even ask those things to Angeline herself. And she's like, "Oh, yes, she is," but she called her Angelina. So I was like, "Oh, I thought I heard Angeline. But I guess her name's Angelina, because this lady clearly knows her." And so I'm like, okay, that's great, and she's like, okay. And then all of a sudden, later, not 20 minutes later, all of a sudden I got a text from her, and here she is. Here's Angelina's number. And I was like, wow. I just wanted to know if she was single, so the next time I see her, I can talk to her. But here it is. And so I was like, I think I texted you first.
You did, yeah. You texted me first. Yeah.
I texted her, and then she corrected me and let me know that her name was Angeline, which I thought it was, but then the other lady had called her Angelina. So that was how we met. That was how we met, and the most I just continued to give me signs. She was the one. I've never known anybody that has a heart for the Most High like Angeline, that is gives her life to serving others. That's so considerate of others. I'm a little more, I'm a little rough around the edges. And Angeline is always sharpening me every day.
Sharpen each other every day.
Yeah, my shield bearer, most definitely. But that was how we met. And how long did it take for us to get married?
Okay, so from the first time we met, the first text until the day we actually got married was 42 days. Our courtship was 42 days.
Wow. Seems like it should have been 40.
A little more significant biblical number, right?
A little more biblical number.
If we thought about it,
yeah,
we should have done that, right?
I know. I didn't think about that at the time.
Yeah, right.
But you don't really do those things intentionally.
Right.
The Most High just does that for you.
That was for me on my end of it. It was just y'all worked through the entire thing, because like Scott, I wasn't looking for anybody. I'm a single mom. I came with 6 kids from my first marriage.
I had 2.
And I only had one living at home, my youngest one. The others were all, they're all grown. Now they're all adults, all grown out of the house. But not looking, just, it was a jam night, just, I'd go every week or every other week when we have one, and just kind of hang out, with the other ladies in the church, and sing and be a part of it. And I saw Scott there. I thought he was very talented, he's a good looking guy, but like, again, totally not looking for anybody. But he was very talented because he'd get up on stage and sing his songs that he had written, his own music, which was nice because it was original. A lot of people played other people's things when they were there, but Scott had his own music, which was really cool. He's very talented. You should check out his albums. Anyway, yeah, all the major platforms. Check them out. Scott Groucher.
And they're free on YouTube there too. There's a whole YouTube channel that I don't own because I don't have my intellectual property, because apparently you need 15 subscribers in order to say that's officially yours, and their corporate legalese stuff. But yeah. So anyway, that's what that brought us together. I felt when I was with Angeline that day. So I've been in the presence, and this will be in my fuller testimony. I've been in the presence of Yahushua. And it wasn't like anything that I did. I was not worthy. I was not worthy to be in his presence. But when you're in his presence, from the overwhelming love that you've never known, unless someone else has the love of Christ in them, and mercy, the feeling of home. When you're in his presence, he's home. That's what I felt with Angeline. Like the first, when I haven't felt that with anybody else. But other true believers. There are other true believers that we've come across in our journey here that we've felt that home, that recognition of home, and that is the spirit of the Most High dwelling in them. But yeah, so that's what I felt in her, and I still do to this day, and it just grows every day. It's amazing. As she said, she had 6 kids, and I had said at the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, I said had. My children were taken from me. Not by anything. Well, it is by something I did. Is because I'm a real follower of Yahuwah, and part of my testimony too is there's been this group of people, these bloodlines that have been after me and targeting me. They have control of the courts and everything else, and Yahuwah has allowed this happen for his good, and I know it's working out to his good. We pray every day. I mean, this is why we started doing these is because my daughter is a believer, a true believer, and she doesn't get fed unless I'm teaching her and stuff. And so that's why we started these, is because I couldn't see them anymore without being on pharmakia. That was part of the courts wanted me to be on pharmakia. Another part of my testimony we'll get into later, but that's why we started doing these videos, is to help teach, not just Chloe, but all of our kids, because I see them as my kids too. So we're all under the banner of the Mashiach. So anyway, so that's what got us together, and then what has led us here to Arkansas. We started off in Oregon. That's where we met each other, and that's where we were at. We were in the church. Both of us were in the church. She was in leadership of the church she was at. She was leading the women's ministry, and I wasn't in any position of leadership at my church. I wasn't, and I see why now. Why now that wasn't. I would get asked by other clergymen and stuff. Why aren't you in leadership? What is wrong? What is wrong with your church? But it's like that. I was younger. When I started, I was a youth pastor, and I was in leadership, and we were changing the church because we wanted to do things biblically, and so there had to be change. Because they weren't living, this church wasn't teaching biblically when I started going there. We started doing that, and I got drawn out of that, and that's another story. That's another rabbit hole. So, anyway, we're together, and my pastor, who we ended up getting, doing an actual wedding marriage after we had been married. And
we got married at the courthouse, and then a couple months later, we joined our families, physical families,
which
and
we
church
didn't have to
families
do any of
together.
this. We didn't have to do any of this, but we did. And then we did the marriage family with her church and my church together. And then I was given an ultimatum by my pastor, my best friend, that I needed to choose between those churches. We couldn't just go to both of them, because that's what we were doing. One weekend we would go to mine, one weekend we go to her church, and he said, no, you can't do that. You have to commit. Well, her church offered me a position to be a youth pastor. And I'm like, well, I'm not serving here. My gifts aren't, I've been here for almost 8 years, and I'm not doing anything with the music, with the praise ministry and stuff like that. And here I am, I'm writing all this music and stuff, all these songs that you allow me to play at the mission when we go to the mission and minister to the guys at the mission, but I can't play at the church. It's just, anyway, that's another thing. But so I felt God was calling me to go to this other church, so we went there. And then in the midst of that church, we got called. We're doing this. She's in leadership, I'm in leadership, and then then they're grooming us. They want us to teach, and disciple and all. Some of these other people do these classes and stuff like that. Teach these classes and stuff like that. And in the midst of that, it just became evidently clear that this church is not, the churches that we've been going to are not real. They're doing all these pagan things and not, going, not following the Shabbat, and not following the Torah at all, just totally erasing, the first, the Torah and everything. And
Well, going in the direction too, we saw was those that wrote the biggest checks could decide what was going to be taught and talked about, and who would be in positions of leadership. And I had worked admin for a couple other churches as well, and saw it was a common theme with the churches.
Yeah, the worship team were addicts using drugs and drinking and all this stuff, and I'm just like, they had me do worship one time there, and the one time that we did it, everybody was coming to me, we want you to do it from now on. You focus on God. And all this. I'm like, well, it's not up to me. But I just found it interesting that, here I have all these songs and stuff like that, and, they didn't want anything to do with that. They would rather play secular music in there at the church, and I was just like, what are they doing? This is just crazy. And Angeline's like, okay, we just need to do like a home thing, and, you need to teach and everything, but I was just like, I heard that calling, and I've always heard that calling, but no, I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility and stuff. So we church hopping. And it was always the same thing. It was always the same thing. They're all in Babylon. And so that's what my latest album is called, Out of Babylon. That's what that's about. It's about coming out of that. And the songs that the Most High gave us on our way out of there. And on the road here. So then we started doing home teaching and just, really diving in. For me, Angeline had already been, reading all the extra biblical stuff, which I think all scripture is breathed. And yes, inspired by God. But Angeline was already there. I was taught not to read this stuff. That this is critical, stuff. You can't read any of this stuff. And Angeline sunk me with the truth. With the Shabbat, Sabbath. I gave her the knee-jerk seminary response to the Sabbath, and she's like, well, where's that in the Bible? And I'm just like, huh. So I took it as a challenge. I'm going to find that. It's nowhere in the Bible. Where does the Most High change the Sabbath? He doesn't change the Sabbath. No, he said that we're supposed to do this forever. So I'm like, okay, I stand corrected. And we're going on the wrong day, and then I dig deeper into it, find out the Constantine origins of the venerable day of the sun, and all that, and him changing Shabbat, and then having the Heliel II, the last Sanhedrin president, changed the Hebrew calendar to change Shabbat so it would match up with the Gregorian calendar for Saturday, and so that was doing it wrong too. So here we are, then we got led to the Enochian lunar solar calendar, and that corrects everything. It's in the Book of Jubilees as well, that calendar.
And for those who want, the only one in print that we're aware of is through Sacred Word Publishing. Zen Garcia puts it together, and it's definitely worth checking out his website.
Yeah, which they sent, the Garcia family, they're awesome. They sent us a free one because we were on the road and we had no money. No money. We gave up everything. That's the next thing. We gave up everything. And Angeline can start you off with that, with what the Most High had called her to do during that time.
One time we both worked for a company in Oregon. We were NEMTs for about a year. Drivers for medical transport, transporting people to medical appointments, dental appointments, and mental health appointments. And we just kept seeing a common theme there too.
Feeding my people to the snake.
Yeah, it was. We thought we took it on. We thought, oh great, we're helping people get to their appointments. This is a great thing. And it was a company that posted scriptures. Was it Matthew 25 or 24?
25.
25:40. Yeah, 25:40. Whatever you do to the least of these, you do unto me. Scripture on everything on their website and their vehicles. And okay, well, we're doing unto the least of these. We're taking people everywhere. These people that.
But you go into the owner's office and he's got a picture of Benjamin Netanyahu, Benji, and his Luciferian star, his sigil, right there. So we were taking, and then we came to realize that we were, and then there were people that we would have to take really early morning shifts, the methadone clinics. So we're taking them 6 days a week to get their fix. It's the government okays it. These are people that are on mental health orders. They get these prescriptions where they can go get their methadone. So we're helping them continue to be drug addicts. We're not helping them break free. We saw people with medical issues. The medical community isn't helping people get healed and healthy. They're making them more sick and actually killing them off. We saw we saw lots of things. Piece
heard lots of
by
things.
piece.
Yeah.
Piece by piece.
Yeah. And so we prayed about it. We prayed about it for a while. And what you had told me, the Ruach HaKodesh was telling me, gave me a date. Okay, by this date, September 30th, this last year, you need to stop. You need to quit working for this company. It told me that. So it was 2 months prior before I even put in my notice. I kept hearing it. You need to put in your notice. September 30th needs to be your last day. And so I did. And during that time, and then I get the Holy Spirit telling me, and I fasted and prayed before in the past, and it was always something I chose to do, to fast and pray different times, the Hebrew times a year, at for different things. I felt the need to pray for and fast for different people or situations, or just to draw closer to the Most High. And this one was, I was called to a 40-day fast. And I don't usually I don't tell people fast because we're not supposed to. We're supposed to keep that, but for the sake of this video. So I was called to a 40-day fast, which I started about halfway through September. And it was that was a time of great dependence on the Lord and the Most High, and just becoming the relationship with Him just so much stronger. And then Scott he was praying as well, and he felt Most High was telling him as well, your last day needs to be September 30th.
Well, and the Most High gave me a vision at that time, that we had six full phases of the moon before the separation of the wheat and the tares. This is the time the wheat and the tares being separated. Those who are his people and those who aren't will be separated. And so I was given that vision, and then Most High told me too that we're gonna be working for him like full time. So I was like, during this time that we're gonna have a mobile ministry, and that's something Angeline and I, that was what we've always wanted to do, is just be on the road and serve the Most High, go to where he calls us.
Even before we took the NEMT positions, that's something we really looked into doing. We just didn't have the finances at that time. And then Scott was, trying to get custody of his kids, so it wasn't the right timing. And we thought this, the job position, the NEMT position came up, like, okay, well, we get to witness to people, we get to get paid for it. We thought, okay, this is great, this is a Christian type company, and we could share the gospel, and we did get to share with a few people that were, well, that'll be another video for another time, but people seeking the truth that have left the churches, that have gone to the churches looking for answers. They know there's something more. That church hurt, it's a real thing, and we that was something else we kept seeing and hearing from people when we share with them. And there were a couple other drivers as well that were truth seekers too, and would share, and they saw that as well. And
there was a lot that weren't. We got persecuted a lot. I still get hateful emails. I'm a Judaizer, a vicious Judaizer.
Yeah, well, enemy uses people to to keep attacking, and they don't stop. They're on the fighting for the wrong army.
Yeah, I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. There is no tribes of Israel anymore. What are you talking about? I'm like, what book are you reading? What book are you reading? I didn't find this out through a DNA test or anything like that. It's through my family. It really is in my family. It's just fine.
Yeah,
it's just fine.
Anyway, so we thought, so we did that, but then we were called out of it. So we drove for a year for them, and then we knew the Most High was telling us, okay, it's time. He was preparing us. I think he led us to that time with that job to see where the need really was, the type of people. We know we're supposed to, the marriage feast, when he sends the invitation out, we've all read it, that, he sends it out to all these wealthy people, his friends, and people he thinks he's going to show up, and they decline his invitation to the wedding feast. Then he sends out more invitations, and they decline as well. And then he goes out to the dregs of society and pulls those people in to the wedding feast, and they accept the invitation. And those were exactly the kind of people we were serving and seeing, and the ones that had the most questions and the ones that were really seeking truth were those.
And the amount of demonic activity that was going on.
Yeah. And we could,
off the charts, is unprecedented.
Yeah.
I personally dealt with a lot of that. But Angeline, after she met me.
Another story.
Another story.
Another podcast. Anyway,
yeah.
So we knew when it all came together, we needed to put in our notice. We were renting a place, and then put in our notice there. We still didn't know. We didn't know how it was all going to come to work. We just needed to sell off everything and go, which we did.
Which at this place, just a caveat. Yeah. At this place we were at, it was really beautiful place. How many acres was it?
It was it was 111 acres, backed by 20,000 acres of BLM. So we were in the forest, so one of the most beautiful places.
And let me tell you, those Nephilim, they have access to salvation too. We had a lot of experiences with the Nephilim out there.
Yeah, it was my first time with encounters. Like, I'd heard things, and he's experienced this stuff, but I hadn't. Now we got stories. I hadn't, I didn't know one way or another. I'm not one to dismiss something until I've really investigated, looked into it, so I didn't know. I didn't really have the information on that. I knew about Nephilim, but not like the Bigfoot type thing. But here, yeah, but we did have stuff go down when we were out there before, so
and then the most,
real.
and the
and I'm not one to just believe things, so I know it to be real.
And at first, I'm like, I want to physically fight him. You know, I'm like, battle, yes, it's battle, battle the Nephilim and everything. But then it was just like the spirit said, no, you know, preach the gospel to them. Preach. So I would just whenever they come around, I just come out and I would start, you know, preaching salvation, that their bloodline can be, you know, secured in the root, you know, too, and that, you know, salvation was for them too. It's for all, you know. I'd read it, and it was and you know, the funny thing is when I started doing that, we stopped having problems.
Yeah.
There.
Stopped, literally.
But before that was just like constant. They were just messing with us, big time. And then when I started to preach to them, it was
all it took.
That's all it took.
So that gets us to, so in January of this year, of 2025, is when we began this journey beyond the road. We started out with a Trailblazer. We got in a pull-behind trailer.
Aristocrat, 1964.
Yeah, it's got a cool retro type thing. We ended up trading that in for a motorhome, Fleetwood, older motorhome. So we start our adventures, and adventures is I guess the word for it.
All our finances that we got for this ministry trip, all our finances went into fixing that motorhome, and along the way how it would break down, you know, it was just, but it was really it was terrible. It was terrible, but it always bore fruit. It always bore fruit. Everything, you know, all things work to the good of those who love God, who are called according to His purpose.
Yes.
And His purpose for us wasn't exactly what we saw, you know, or what I saw personally. I thought we're going to be doing all this evangelism like that, you know, but it wasn't like that. And we got to meet a lot of really cool, real brothers and sisters along the way. People that you know were on the outskirts of the church. You know, Celebrate Recovery folks, James and April, awesome, beautiful people. Home in their presence. Home.
Yeah. Amazing people.
And a lot of people, and we were like willing to work our way all the way here to Arkansas, and
well, that was our plan.
That was our plan, to work
along. You know, like Paul was a tent maker. You know, the disciples, they used the skills they already had to earn their way. To keep going. You know, on the journey. And that was our intention. And we stop at churches along the way. You know,
see if they had any work for us.
Any work? You guys have any work we could do? Anybody that needs some side work? And 99% of them were completely detached from their congregations. Had no idea if anybody needed any assistance. Some wouldn't even bother to come to the desk and talk to it. What we saw it was heartbreaking, because we saw what the church should be doing. It was not.
Everybody knows what it should be. If you read the Word of God, you know what it should be, and that is not what we have in America or across the globe. You know, it's there's real ones here and there, but the
ones we found, they weren't the church people. The people, the ones who were outside of the church are the ones that those that were invited to the supper last.
And occasionally, the Most High would work through an actual pastor, you know, and just give us money. You know, we would ask to work for it, and they would just give us money for gas to keep going. And that's how we got, to Arkansas. It didn't feel like, how long did it take us?
Okay, so journey, it should have taken 34 hours, and it took us 49 days.
49 days in the wilderness. 49 days in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And,
But the stops along the way, we stopped in some really heartbreaking places, like, I'll say
Sacramento.
Sacramento was one. You just feel demonic presence there. It was definitely, there was just so much there. It was it was heavy. and Bakersfield was a close second, probably topped it. Just it was heartbreaking. The people walked around like zombies. It was incredible, the demonic activity there, and it felt like that's where we got stuck the longest, I think. Was it big? Everything just kept seeming to keep going wrong.
Now, granted, these things that are going wrong. I am not a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic. I've always like tried to work on my own cars and fix them just out of sheer poverty, because I don't have the money to pay for a mechanic, So, YouTube, it's great. There are no YouTube videos on this specific vehicle, on this specific, motorhome. There were no YouTube videos on how to work on the engine or anything, so I had to braille my way through all that. And a lot of the times I would just be like, Yahuwah, please show me what I need to do. Please show me I have no idea what I'm doing here. Please show me what needs to be fixed and stuff. And then it would work, like every time. But, it's not even running now, but we're here.
We're in Arkansas.
We're here in Arkansas, and but just amazing, beautiful people that we got to meet, and a lot of demonic stuff that we like to bind and cast out, and
we did get to share the gospel with some people. We have these. It's the Book of John. Scripture, these small booklets, and we were able to give those out and pray with some people.
Play
music and walk. Just walk down the street wherever we got stuck. Just walk a few blocks and walk around the neighborhoods and just hand out the gospel and pray with folks.
I'd be wrenching on that thing, and she'd come back and she was ministering, talking about how she got to pray with people and everything, and I'm like, oh man, I missed out. I'm trying to get this thing going so we can get to where we need to be, right? But everything's in His time. So we did get here eventually. There was points throughout our trip I didn't think we were going to make it. Maybe God doesn't want us in Arkansas. But it seems like He does now, since we're here. But our whole passion was feeding the homeless. Sharing the gospel, but living that out by feeding, actually doing what that the Matthew 25:40, for the least of these, you're doing this for me. When you're doing this, this is how we witness.
That's what we were doing before we left Oregon. That was our minister, Save to Serve ministry.
We wanted to get a food truck and go around and just do this. We were out of our own pocket. No churches were helping us do this. They didn't want anything to do with it. We tried to get that to work, and it's just no, they don't.
Well, the churches are unfortunately busy. The denominations are fighting each other.
Protect the widows and the children. What?
Instead of it really is sad. It really is heartbreaking that the churches are so busy fighting each other that they can't join together and do what Most High has called us to do. And it is in the Old and New Testament scriptures about feeding the poor, taking care of the widows and the fatherless, and visiting the prisoners and the sick. That's what we're supposed to do. It's part of our character in Christ, in the least of these. And see the churches and the people, the members, the leadership, especially so busy fighting or just so caught up in other things, worldly things, that they don't have time for it. And it's really.
They're 501(c)(3)s, They're serving the beast. They're serving the beast. So we're actually here. We can hear the bell again. We're that close. We're that close to where we're at. This amphitheater is that close to where our RVs parked. That's going to be on the next album. We'll have that RV, that broken down RV. That's going to be on it. It's going to be called Nomadic Ministries. That's the name of the next album. But it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. Be one of the King's kids. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and yeah, there's hard things. You know, it's not easy being called. I mean, it can be brutal. It can be brutal, and that's why, you know, when you're called, but if you know, heed that call, because they see what you see. It's like when I was a kid, I read the Bible once when I was a kid, and I saw that all those who lived for God died, you know, horrific deaths. And so it's just like, man, if I live how I'm supposed to live, they're gonna kill me. They're gonna kill me, you know. And you know, that guy died. Thank goodness. You know, he died. But yeah, we're just we're excited. Right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern, but you know, this is where he's cultivating us. He's preparing us for the next phase of our mission, and that has to do with deliverance. There's a deliverance ministry that's going to be coming along with that.
Yeah.
I actually hope to meet up with Nathan Reynolds and yeah. There's a lot I think we can learn from each other. His testimony and my testimony are, yeah, there's a lot of things that parallel. We may have even met along in that other world that we were in. But yeah. So you know, praise be to the Most High. Glory be to the Son. Holy Mother, wisdom she calls. To this earthen vessel. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're going to call that for this episode. This is our, you know, this is where how we got here. We're going to do some more. We're going to do some. You know, we're going to do some more. We're still going to finish the Wisdom of Solomon teaching, but there's some other stuff that's important that we need to do too. And my testimony is one of those things I need to put on there. And I should start writing the book.
Yeah.
I'm all stubborn. Angeline's one. You know, I wouldn't have put out music albums. You know, any of that. I wouldn't be doing a podcast. These were all things Angeline's like, you got this. I wouldn't have been doing a home church. Angeline's like, you need to be doing this. The Spirit working through her, pushing me to do these things, and I'm very thankful.
Speaking of pushing, I'm just going to encourage anybody watching this that it isn't easy to answer the call. The call is not an easy one, especially in these last days. We see, like Scott was saying, you know, the separation, the sheep and the goats, the wheats and the tares. The line's been drawn, and people need to choose what side they want to be on. There's no more fence sitting. There's no more stand on one side, you know, 1 foot, one world, one on the other. You have to make a choice and make it today. It's not an easy. We're called to live easy lives. We've been called to be in battle. We've been called to be soldiers. We're called to strap on our armor and fight a real enemy. We don't give the enemy enough credit for as powerful and as cunning as he is. And we need to be in the scriptures, all the scriptures, and to be aware of, you know, what to look for. Be in the Word, be in the Spirit, be in prayer constantly. And if you're being prompted, like we were, to answer a call, do it. Don't wait. Don't delay. Don't make excuses.
Don't wait. You are in Babylon. When I say coming out of Babylon, you are literally in Babylon. If you're in a mainstream church right now, if you're going to church on Sunday, if you're doing all the things that the mainstream church is all about, if you're celebrating Christmas and all these pagan holidays, and you think that just because you could put, you know, it's where my heart is, you know, God doesn't care. He doesn't care. He has established a way that you are to worship Him, and you are to worship Him His way, not your way, not my way, not her way, the way He has called us to.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, you're lukewarm, you know, and He would rather you be, you know, hot or cold, totally dark, but because you're stuck in that spot. And I was there, I was right there. I was in, and I thought I was serving God, but I knew like they're still doing all this pagan stuff. I'm like, but I gotta be here. You know, there's no, you know, yeah, there is. You know, we're a remnant. That's not a large demographic.
Narrow is the gate, and few are those who go through it. Be one of those that goes through it. Answer the call. Don't wait anymore. Don't delay. Don't put it off. Don't make excuses. Don't let others talk you out of
Be
it.
all in for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Be all in.
It's an all or nothing game. It's not.
And
this
being
is
in
real.
Babylon, look at these churches. They all of them have a friggin' obelisk on top of it.
Yeah. Do your research.
Know who you're serving.
Research the history of obelisks, and you'll find it's not what you think. And we encourage you as well, just like us, do the research. Search out the scriptures. Search them, read them, reread them, read the, I won't say all the commentaries, but, just study this stuff, research it. All those extra biblical texts you've been told not to read them. All the pieces you've been looking for, things that don't seem to make sense. In the
Constantine
66
Creed.
books.
Yeah, read the Constantine Creed. Look up Hallel II, the last president of the Sanhedrin. Why he changed the calendar, the Hebrew calendar. Look into these things. Just don't take. When you know that the Gregorian calendar is not according to God's calendar to begin with, because there's two separate calendars. But then, how is this jiving? How are these days jiving? With this, and all the days in the Gregorian calendar, and you can follow that, all the way back to Constantine, Julian, Augustus, all those guys. It's the same calendar. They just changed. They made little tweaks here and there to venerate themselves, in the process. But it's, God has a calendar, and we are to follow His calendar. There's no Monday through Sundays. There's only the first day of the week, second day of the week, third day of the week. Those days. Sorry.
Yeah.
Webinar ran.
No, it's all good. So just be in communion with Yahuwah, talking to Him daily, not just pray once a week, not just like you go Sundays and get your scripture, you get to pray, pastor to pray for you, and you call it good for the rest of the week. Every day, every moment, every day, every waking moment, when you in Deuteronomy, when you go to sleep, when you rise up, when you're walking down the path.
Hold every thought captive.
Yes. Yeah. But make sure those thoughts are, focused. If you're focused on the Most High, seek first the kingdom, God, and His righteousness. Those are the things we're supposed to be seeking, not the things of the world, not the kudos, not the pats on the back, not wealth, not anything that meets our pride or lust or any other sin, but Yahuwah Himself. Those are things we're supposed to be seeking, especially these last days, because the battle's about to get real brutal, and you need to know what side you're on. So please be in prayer. Please seek out the truth.
And the battle already is really brutal, and if you can't see it, that's a problem.
Then pray for the Most High to open your eyes to see things as they really are, not as what you've been led to believe.
All right. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom to our folks in Hawaii.
Yep. Till next time. Blessings.
Bye.
I was called to Israel out of the double sin. Holy Mother whispers to me, stand for the Torah is near, and I sing. Come out of Babylon. Nothing is as it seems. Come out of Babylon. Lukewarm is in between.